TrueStory Vibes warmly welcomes all our beloved listeners. We're so glad to see you again in our familiar time slot.
Today,
TrueStory Vibes brings you a brand new story, one that we hope will touch your heart and stay with you. As you listen, feel free to leave a comment sharing the quote or moment that left the deepest impression on you. Wishing you a wonderful and meaningful listening experience. Marina Vale stepped off the chartered bus onto the slick pavement of Harbor City, Oregon, and felt the weight of fresh beginnings settle onto her shoulders. At 22 years old, she carried her life in a single navy duffel bag, a battered sewing kit, a stack of hand-measured swatches, and dreams sewn together with equal parts hope and grit. Seaview Glen had always been home. Its tidy cottages and winding roads offered comfort, but Marina hungered for something more. Today, she would walk through the grand gates of Hartwell Industries and, with her own two hands, tailor her destiny. Her heels clicked officially on concrete as she approached the gleaming glass lobby of the Hartwell building. 3 stories of chrome and plate glass towered above, reflecting the salty morning light off the nearby harbor. Inside, the air was cool with air conditioning and the low hum of business. Marina paused, smoothing the lapel of her charcoal blazer before approaching the receptionist's desk. Ms. Vale. The woman behind the counter wore a perfectly tailored navy suit, nameplate pinned fast. Diane Marquez, executive assistant. Diane's tone was polite but brisk, as if everyone at Hartwell moved at warp speed. Mr. Hart will see you now. 5th floor, Suite 502. Do you have your ID badge? Marina produced her temporary pass, an overnight facility sticker with her name scribbled in blue ink, and slipped through the security gate. The elevator ride felt unreal. She hovered between floors, her heart pulsing in time with the soft ding of aluminum doors. On the 5th floor, she walked down a carpeted corridor tempered by muted charcoal walls and framed historical photos of Hartwell's steel mills. Outside Suite 502, she paused, took a breath, and pushed the glass door open. The office was massive. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of shipping docks and the Pacific beyond. A sleek walnut desk dominated the center, behind which sat a figure with his back to her. Crisp white shirt, dark tie, broad shoulders. He was the model corporate heir. Please come in. His voice was calm, even as it echoed slightly off the high ceilings. He turned in his leather chair, and Marina met the sight she'd rehearsed in her mind all morning. Ethan Hart was 25, but his presence carried a maturity beyond his years. His chestnut hair was neatly trimmed, his blue-gray eyes held intelligent measurement. A splash of early stubble gave him just enough edge to offset his tailored suit. As he tucked a loose strand behind his ear, he offered a polite smile that softened the rigid lines of his jaw.
Marina Vale.
He stood and extended a hand. Thank you for coming on such short notice. I've reviewed your portfolio. Your work at Seaview Stitchery is impressive. His tone was warm, yet professional. Marina accepted his handshake firmly, her own fingers brushing a hint of nervous excitement. Thank you, Mr. Hart. I'm honored to be here. Please call me Ethan. As he guided her to a pair of plush guest chairs, he gestured toward a sleek coffee station in the corner. Coffee?
Yeah.
I know mornings can be brutal. Black coffee would be amazing, she replied, settling into a chair that overlooked the harbor. The city beyond bustled, a frenzied mix of cranes lifting shipping containers and seagulls circling gullibly overhead. Marina's pulse accelerated. This was it, the moment her life shifted from small-town rhythm to corporate crescendo. Ethan returned with 2 steaming mugs. I like my coffee strong, he said, handing her a cup. Fuel for a long day of fittings and fabric selections. She smiled. I couldn't agree more. He sank into the chair opposite, retrieving her folder from the desk. I've got several units in our design department eager to meet you. They specialize in executive uniforms, polos, blouses, slacks, practical but polished. I hear you've got an eye for functional detail and subtle style. Marina nodded, heart surging. I believe a uniform should feel like a second skin, durable, comfortable. but still with a bit of humanity. Ethan's lips quirked in approval. Exactly why we brought you in. We've got 3 pilot stores launching next quarter. Each location, San Diego, Seattle, and Portland, will need a fresh, sharp look. And honestly, with your background in custom tailoring back in Seaview Glen, you bring a perspective our in-house designers lack. He leaned forward, earnestness shining in his eyes. I don't want another cookie-cutter approach. We need distinct silhouettes that hold up under long shifts, that all-day desk slog, and still look crisp for a 5 p.m. client meeting. Your reputation says you can do it. Marina sipped her coffee, tasting its bittersweet warmth, and nodded. I'd love to collaborate. May I see the samples and spec sheets? Of course. He slid a set of large binders onto her lap. Fabric swatches, color palettes, silhouette sketches. The team downstairs has curated performance blends, moisture-wicking polyester, stretch cotton blends, lightweight wool. I'll introduce you to them in a moment. As Marina thumbed through the swatches, Ethan stood and walked to the window. Look at that view, he said, placing a hand on the glass. When Hartwell started here in 1978, this was all shipyards and cranes. Now we're part of the city's skyline, integrated with industry, commerce, and fashion. I want our uniforms to reflect that evolution. Marina glanced up, meeting his gaze. It's a statement when people wear your brand every day. It needs to say something about the company and its people. He smiled in genuine agreement. You'll fit right in. Just then, the door opened again, and 2 designers joined them. Rachel Kim, a spirited illustrator with a stack of digital sketches, and Marcus Ortega, a technical expert whose clipboard bristled with notes. Their introductions were swift, warm, and professional. Ethan outlined the pilot program, then stepped back. Rachel, Marcus, Marina will be leading details on cut and fit. Take her around the lab. I'm in a meeting in 20, but I'll catch up for lunch. As Ethan strode away, Marina felt a spark of energy. Rachel guided her to a large work table strewn with mannequins in various stages of garment construction, while Marcus turned on a garment steamer, explaining the performance metrics of each fabric. Marina touched the smooth blend of nylon and cotton, inhaled its crisp scent, and nodded thoughtfully at a detailed spec sheet. They moved from sketches to mock-ups. Marina examined pocket placements, tested collar curvature, and gently tugged the seams of a sample blazer, listening to the fabric's response. She suggested subtle tweaks, raising the sleeve cap for easier movement, adjusting the lapel width for modern proportions. Rachel sketched in real time, while Marcus updated the specs on his tablet. The lab hummed with focused energy. Marina felt at home in this creative crucible. Each swatch spoke volumes about functionality and style. Each stitch whispered compromise between form and performance. She envisioned uniforms that moved with their wearers, mechanics bending under machinery, shipping clerks scanning barcodes, sales executives meeting clients at dusk. 20 minutes later, Ethan returned with coffee for everyone. Marina thanked him, then presented her initial observations: a streamlined polo collar, reinforced side seams, a slightly tapered waist. She explained how small changes could translate into comfort on the shop floor and confidence in the boardroom. Ethan beamed. That's exactly the kind of detailed insight we need. I'm excited to see your magic in motion. Marina felt a thrill of pride and the quiet promise of everything she'd worked for. Outside, the harbor's cranes clanked rhythmically, as if cheering her on. Inside, the Hartwell team rallied around her ideas, their eagerness palpable. By midday, she left Suite 502 with a fuzzy sense of triumph and a full schedule of fittings, fabric orders, and collaborative design sprints. As she stepped back into the bright harbor sunlight, she realized Seaview Glen was still her home, but Harbor City had claimed a piece of her heart. And somewhere on that harbor breeze, Marina Vale sensed the stitch that would bind her destiny to Hartwell's future and to Ethan's world of steel, innovation, and uncharted possibility. By late afternoon, Marina found herself standing beneath a vaulted stained glass archway in the oldest church in Harbor City, every heartbeat thrumming like the church's ancient pipe organs. Her hands trembled as Reverend Caldwell pronounced the short, solemn vows. She and Ethan exchanged rings, slender bands of polished silver, while only two witnesses, a stunned Diane Marquez and a discreet city clerk, stood by. No grand gala, no florist's extravagance, just them, wrapped in the hush of an empty sanctuary. Their marriage, arranged in secrecy to forestall Sebastian Hart's wrath, carried the weight of midnight strategy. Ethan had insisted on a clandestine ceremony. "If my father learns we're married before we fulfill our agreement, he'll shut everything down," he'd whispered in her ear earlier that morning. Voice taut with urgency and something gentler. Care. Marina nodded, touched the smooth silver band as she slid it onto her finger, taste of rosary beads and holy candle smoke on her lips. Afterward, they slipped into the back seat of Ethan's black sedan. The driver never spoke as they sped north, leaving Harbor City's steel mills and glass facades behind. The couple's hands found one another in the dim light. Marina, still in her simple ivory dress, felt Ethan's eyes on her seat belt's clasp. "You did amazing today," he whispered, brushing a stray curl behind her ear. "Thank you for trusting me." She closed her eyes against the headrest, heart fluttering. "I trust you," she said. "Completely." Their first night as husband and wife unfolded in the guest suite at Seaview Glen Inn, a cozy room overlooking saltwater docks. No grand honeymoon. Only soft lamplight reflecting on maritime charts hung above a queen bed. Ethan drew her close, every touch reverent and deliberate, as if he were mapping uncharted oceans. They spoke in hushed tones, discovering the contours of their new commitment, laying awake until sleep claimed them. 2 weeks later, Marina returned to Hartwell Industries for her second fitting session. She'd swapped her sanctuary of hand-stitched linens for a tailored uniform sample in sleek charcoal gray. As she slid her arms into the jacket sleeves, a sudden wave of nausea stole her breath. Halting the production manager mid-measure, Marina called Rachel Kim, brow furrowed. "Are you okay?" Marina's cheeks flamed. She stepped to the side, pressing a hand to her mouth, willing the sudden queasiness away. I need a moment." Confusion rippled across the team's faces as Marina quietly excused herself and hurried toward the ladies' lounge. The fluorescent lights felt too bright, the hum of steam from the garment steamer suddenly oppressive. She pressed her forehead against the cool tile wall and inhaled, backtracking through every bite of breakfast, cream cheese bagel, a sip of strong coffee. Everything she'd eaten felt like betrayal. That evening, Ethan joined her at a small Italian bistro on Pier 14. Low, twinkling lights and the briny breeze of the bay set a softer tone than the boardrooms and design labs. As they shared a plate of spaghetti à la vongole, Ethan's hand covered hers. "You've seemed off today," he said, spoon paused mid-twitch. "Are you feeling sick?" Marina held his gaze, searching for an anchor. "I've been nauseous a lot lately," she admitted. "I thought it was stress, this whole secret wedding business, but I'm worried." He reached into his jacket pocket and withdrew a small strip of pastel pink and white. "I got this just in case," he confessed, voice a notch quieter. "If you want to know for sure." Marina stared at the test kit, pulse racing. "I don't know," she whispered. "I'm so nervous." Ethan gave her hand a gentle squeeze. "We'll face it together," he promised. At home that night, in the hush of the master suite above his corporate office, Marina closed the bathroom door and sat on the edge of the tub. The small plastic stick wavered in her trembling grasp. Then, 2 pink lines, clear and steady, pregnant. Tears sprung without warning, of relief, of joy, of sheer astonishment. She sank against the tiled wall, the world tilting in gentle circles. A life was growing inside her. Ethan's life, their life, furtive and new. She placed a hand over her heart, every thump a promise. When she emerged, Ethan was waiting by the mirror, towel draped over his shoulder. He beamed as she held up the test. He pulled her into a fierce hug, kissing the top of her head until tears slid down his own cheeks. "We did it," he breathed. "We're going to be parents." In that quiet moment, far from the glare of conference rooms and hidden from Sebastian's ever-watchful eye, Marina realized how irrevocably her world had changed. No longer only a seamstress sewing fabrics, she would now tailor a future for a family. The secret wedding and the clandestine meetings had led to something deeper, the promise of new life, and the hope that love, once forged in shadows, could one day stand unhidden in the light. As dawn broke over Harbor City, the couple lingered in the soft glow, hearts full of fierce, fragile possibility. The journey ahead promised challenges, Sebastian's looming disapproval, company upheavals, and the unknown curve of pregnancy, but together, they felt ready to face whatever storm might come. For now, they held the secret of their union close, wrapped in the quiet wonder of what it meant to be truly, completely married, and soon, to become parents. Sebastian Hart returned to his office in Harbor City on a crisp Monday morning, expecting the usual litany of performance reports and shipping schedules. Instead, he found Diane Marquez, his executive assistant, waiting at the edge of his mahogany desk, her normally composed expression taut with unease. "Sir, you should see this," she said, handing him a slender tablet. On its screen glowed an email from the city clerk's office. Marriage certificate, Marina Vale and Ethan Hart, May 12, 2025. Sebastian's fingertips went numb. He stared at the date, just 3 days ago. He had been in transit, inspecting a new mill in Boise. How had Ethan managed to marry in secret? His shoulders hardened, blood hammered behind his temples. "Where is Ethan?" he demanded, voice artificially calm. "Mr. Hart has a meeting scheduled on the 7th floor, conference room B. It starts in 10 minutes. Without another word, Sebastian swept past Diane and strode down the hallway. He bypassed junior managers and department heads, bristling at their uneasy glances. Word traveled fast at Hartwell Industries, and today every eyebrow lifted as he passed. He reached the glass doors of conference room B, framed with frosted Hartwell logos. He burst in without knocking. Ethan paused mid-presentation. The room's 15 senior executives pivoting in their chairs. Charts of quarterly forecasts and expansion plans flickered on the projector screen. "Father," Ethan began, tone measured, but his eyes flickering. "This isn't a great time." Sebastian cut him off. "You married Marina Vale," he announced, voice echoing off the high ceilings. "Without my permission. Without my knowledge. And without a single word to me." Gasps rippled through the room. Ethan's face went pale, and he released the remote clicker. The presentation halting on a bar graph of projected profits. "Yes," Ethan said quietly. "We married last Friday in Harbor City. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner."
Saw thee?
Sebastian's jaw clenched. "This company, my life's work, runs on trust, on loyalty. And you withhold a marriage license? Explain yourself." Ethan straightened. "I did it because I knew you'd object. You've never approved of Marina." His hand went to his wedding band. "But I love her, and I love her for her skill and her integrity, qualities you claim to admire." "Admirable qualities," Sebastian growled, "would have been displayed in a proper courtship, not a midnight ceremony."
He pointed to Diane.
"Diane, is this certificate valid?" She swallowed. "Yes, sir. All signatures and seals are official." Sebastian pivoted back to Ethan. "You think this is a game? That you can bypass protocol, then flaunt it in front of every executive in this building?" Ethan met his father's glare. "I stand by my decision. Marina is the mother of my child. I won't apologize for choosing her." Sebastian's eyes narrowed. "You won't apologize? You'll risk everything I've built, our legacy, on a secret marriage that undermines company stability." Whispers broke out among the assembled executives, who shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Sebastian held up a fist. Silence. The room clamped shut. He spoke more softly, but no less fiercely. "You think our shareholders won't feel betrayed? Our board members won't call emergency sessions? They expect the heir to follow the succession plan, marry into another steel dynasty, consolidate holdings, secure international partnerships. Not This. He flicked his wrist toward Ethan's wedding band like it were a slap in the face. Ethan's hands clenched at his sides. If you see Marina as a threat, you underestimate her. She's already raised morale in the design division, galvanized the pilot store launches. The press loves her story. Positive publicity means stronger brand equity. Sebastian dismissed the argument with a wave. Publicity is a double-edged sword, son. I admire her on-paper performance, but a clandestine marriage indicates to recklessness. People will question her motives, question you. The Vice President of Finance, Claire Donovan, cleared her throat. Sir, with all due respect, our upcoming pilot launch in Seattle and Portland hinges on tight deadlines. Disrupting the chain of command now could cost us months, if not billions. Sebastian shot a glance at Claire, then at the group. Claire's right. Effective immediately, I'm postponing the pilot program until we reassess leadership. Ethan, you'll step back, temporarily, from all major decisions until this situation is resolved. Tension crackled like static. Ethan's face flushed, but he held his ground. You can't do that. I've signed contracts, committed budgets. Publicly delaying it without explanation will spook investors more than a secret wedding. Secret wedding, Sebastian repeated bitterly. At least now it's public. But the board deserves an explanation. You will deliver one at tomorrow's meeting, or I will. Ethan looked at his father, torn. Then he turned to the group. I apologize for the disruption. But effective immediately, Marina Vale is an official vice president of design at Hartwell Industries. I have full confidence in her. A sharp knock cut him off. Diane opened the door just enough to slip a tablet to Sebastian. He scanned the screen. A text message chain on Marina's phone, accidentally synced to company email. I can't believe you kept this from me. Thank you. Sent from Evan Cole, Damien's given name, Marina's former fabric supplier friend. Ethan and Sebastian exchanged stunned glances. This, Sebastian said, voice low and dangerous, is not over. He handed Diane the tablet. Secure all records. No one leaves until I review every message, every contract, every transaction linked to MS.
Vale.
Sir, Claire began, but he waved her off. I will not run a company built on uncertain loyalties. Not today. The glass door closed behind him, leaving a shuttered hush. Ethan remained standing amid blueprints and blue-chip execs, paper cups of cold coffee, and stunned silence. Marina had stepped into Hartwell's palace expecting design challenges and fabric decisions. She had not bargained for a dynastic showdown. And now, with her marriage exposed and the company's future at stake, Harbor City's steel titan had declared war. In the empty conference room, only the projector's ghostly glow remained, reflecting a new battlefield, one of love versus legacy, of personal choice versus corporate expectation. Ethan stood alone, the weight of his father's fury settling like winter frost. As both heir and husband, he faced his first, fiercest test. Tomorrow's board meeting would decide everything. And in that dark prelude to dawn, Marina, somewhere far from these gleaming walls, would soon learn her husband's next move and whether her dreams of a shared future could survive Sebastian Hart's unrelenting storm. The next morning, Harbor City dawned cool and clear, but inside the gleaming glass tower of Hartwell Industries, the atmosphere was anything but serene. A steady stream of emails, phone calls, and urgent messages flooded every desk, signaling the severity of the brewing crisis. Hartwell's reputation, once as solid as its steel, now teetered on the brink of collapse. By 8:30 a.m., Ethan Hart's inbox held more than 100 customer complaints from distribution centers across the Pacific Northwest. Each report detailed the same alarming issues: steel beams warping under load, safety rails cracking at weld seams, construction bolts shearing under minimal stress. One damning memo from a Seattle contractor read, "Your girder failed load testing at 15% of expected capacity. This is a catastrophic safety risk." Another from a Vancouver supplier warned, "Oversized shipments of substandard plate metal. Our inspectors refuse to unload until you remedy this." Ethan, now stripped of his design authority, sat at his oversized executive desk staring at the litany of failure in black and white. His tailored shirt felt too tight against the weight of responsibility. He replayed the previous week's presentation in Conference Room B, the day his father had announced the postponement of all pilot launches.
Now,
Every operational department scrambled to douse the flames of this wider firestorm. At 9 o'clock, the senior leadership team convened in the war room, a windowless bunker of polished oak and steel. Glass boards covered 2 walls, plastered with data feeds, quality control failures, safety incident reports, press mentions. The other 2 walls held floor-to-ceiling monitors streaming social media chatter and news alerts. #HartwellFail trended on Twitter. Carnival of outrage driven by a viral video showing a steel column bending dramatically under a forklift's weight. Standing at the head of the table, Sebastian Hart's icy stare pinned every department head in place. His voice, calm but laced with steel, carried the force of a gavel. Today, we address the most serious breach of quality in our century-long history. Not one client, but dozens have been compromised. This is unacceptable. He turned to Quality Control Director Sandra Park. Sandra, walk us through how this happened on your watch. Sandra swallowed, voice trembling. Sir, preliminary analysis shows that several batches were improperly heat-treated. We traced the issue to the Baltimore Mills quenching process. It deviated from spec by 15 degrees Celsius, compromising tensile strength. Sebastian's gaze sharpened. And who authorized the quench parameters for Baltimore last month? Before Sandra could answer, Operations VP Carlos Munoz interjected. That would have been overseen by Plant Manager Robert Lee, under the direction of our newly formed Rapid Response Task Force. Ethan. He halted as Ethan, standing at the table's edge, cleared his throat. I authorized expedited production to meet the San Diego pilot orders, Ethan admitted. I overrode the standard QC holds because we were already behind schedule. I realize now it was a mistake. A stunned hush filled the room. Sebastian's face contorted into hardened lines. Mistake, he repeated slowly. You prioritized speed over safety, Jack? Speed is measured in dollars, safety is measured in lives. You gambled with both. Ethan's cheeks flushed. I thought cutting 2 days off production would not compromise integrity. I was wrong. Sebastian steepled his fingers. Wrong? You nearly undid a legacy. The board will want answers. Until this is sorted, you will lead the recall effort and make full disclosure to our clients. He pointed to Carlos. Develop a recall plan by noon. Then to Sandra. Conduct a lab-wide audit of all quench cycles within 2 business days. Finally, he looked at the group as a whole. I want daily bulletins. And someone find that leaked video, contain it. If it's Hartwell's steel failing, it must not be our video. One by one, the executives nodded and dispersed. Ethan lingered, meeting his father's gaze. I'll fix this, he said softly. Sebastian's voice was a quiet blade. You will own this failure, and you will learn from it. 2 hours later, Ethan was in his private office, dialing the head of the San Diego distribution center. This is Ethan Hart. I'm calling about your beam order. We've identified an issue in the steel treatment. We're issuing a full recall and sending replacement beams by tomorrow morning, expedited shipping on us. He watched the XX red face on the video call, shaking with anger and relief. We'll hold all payments until replacements arrive, the director growled, then hung up. Ethan exhaled, fingers grazing the wedding band he'd hurriedly folded beneath a stack of financial reports. Acting swiftly on such a large recall would cost millions in logistics, production downtime, and client goodwill. But the alternative was worse: endless litigation and ruined lives. By midday, Hartwell's PR team unleashed a tightly controlled statement. Hartwell Industries prioritizes safety above all. We are proactively recalling a limited batch of steel products after independent testing revealed performance below our rigorous standards. We deeply regret any inconvenience and remain fully committed to supplying only the highest quality steel. Press releases went out to national and industry media. while social media accounts posted supportive messages from engineering partners. Yet beneath the curated surface, the crisis continued to fester. Disgruntled contractors forwarded leaked emails. Anonymous engineers criticized the rushed overrides, and activist groups planned protests outside Hartwell's offices. At 2 p.m., the board's special committee held an emergency teleconference. Dozens of governors and mayors joined, demanding detailed mitigation plans. Overnight, stock analysts downgraded Hartwell's credit rating, and share prices dipped by 8%. Investors who once admired Hartwell's legacy now questioned its leadership. Through it all, Ethan never left the crisis war room. He pored over production logs, personally inspected recall shipments, and did all he could to contain damage. Yet every night, fatigue gnawed at him. In his penthouse suite above Harbor City's skyline, he found no solace. Instead, he lay awake, haunted by the bending columns and the images of angry contractors. The irony stung. He'd rushed orders to impress his father, then risked the health of Hartwell's hardest workers. Meanwhile, Marina Vale found herself swept into the turmoil. As vice president of design, her early prototypes had been scheduled for immediate rollout, but the pause left her team in limbo. The Glen Glow line of performance uniforms, meticulously crafted for warehouse staff, was put on hold. Designers at Suite 502 paced anxiously, color palettes forgotten in favor of damage control meetings. Marina's inbox overflowed with requests for status updates and client apologies. She called Rachel Kim and Marcus Ortega into a makeshift conference under harsh fluorescent lights. "I know this sucks," she said, voice steady, "but we're going to emerge stronger. We'll refocus on quality checks and ensure our fabrics meet every standard. Let's run a secondary stress test on every uniform prototype by week's end. If there's even a chance of seam failure, we'll redesign." Her calm decisiveness rallied the team, providing a glimmer of purpose amid chaos. Despite Marina's efforts, the board's ire extended across divisions. By Thursday, the CFO announced an immediate freeze on all non-essential spending, including Marina's new casual executive line slated for January launch. She watched the final proof sheets get shredded in a burning bin outside the finance office, flinching at the hiss of ink meeting flame. On Friday, Sebastian summoned Marina and Ethan to the war room. The long, oval table sat empty, save for 3 places, Sebastian at the head, with Ethan and Marina flanking him. Diane and Carlos stood guard near the door. Only the hum of the wall monitors filled the tense air. Sebastian began, "We have one final directive this week." He tapped the display, revealing a flowchart of client recovery steps. "We will publicly demonstrate our restored quality. Next Monday, I want you both on site at the Boise facility. You will oversee a live demonstration. Quench, temper, test, front row seats for our largest clients. You will then inspect each beam under a delegation of independent engineers. Once they sign off, we can begin phased re-orders." He looked at Ethan. "You lead production oversight. Then, at Marina, you handle design compliance. Any uniform samples you produce that day must pass live tensile tests on camera." Marina's throat tightened at the gravity of the task. Ethan's jaw set in grim determination. This live event would either cement Hartwell's redemption or seal its downfall. As they left the room, Ethan caught Marina's eye and nodded. The crisis had reached its tipping point. In a single demonstration, high stakes, fully transparent, they would battle perceptions of inferior steel and faulty leadership. Next week could make or break Hartwell's future. Over the weekend, Hartwell's teams mobilized like a relief effort after a natural disaster. Logistics meetings, client site visits, shipping manifests, and testing protocols all competed for chart space and conference rooms. Marina coordinated with textile vendors to ensure her uniform samples arrived in sync with steel beams. She worked through the night, poring over stress, test results on her laptop, correcting seam allowances and dart placements to guarantee absolute structural integrity. Ethan, meanwhile, traveled to Boise, inspecting every furnace's thermostat every water bath's temperature gauge, and each lab's spectrometer. He paced cold concrete floors in steel-toed boots, listening to the hiss of steam valves and the rumble of giant rollers shaping red-hot steel. Quality Control Director Sandra Park handed him a stack of lab reports, her face a mix of relief and exhaustion. "I've tightened the quench parameters," she said. "We're holding to plus or minus 2 degrees Celsius now." Tensile strength on the last 3 runs averaged 650 MPa, above spec. Ethan exhaled, letting the number sink in. It wasn't just about numbers, it was about trust. Tomorrow's demonstration would be a public trial by fire, literally and figuratively. By Sunday evening, Marina and Ethan returned to Harbor City, ready to face the board and their clients on Monday morning. Helicopters hovered overhead as Hartwell's executives assembled at the Boise plant entrance, foldouts of stainless steel drilled facade plates gleaming in the early sun. Local media lined the barricades, phone cameras rolling. Marina tugged at her tailored blazer, fitted for the live stream. Beside her, Ethan stood tall in an unmarked steel, blue hard hat, his wedding band glinting in the floodlights. They exchanged a brief smile, shared courage in the face of overwhelming odds. As Kansas structural engineer Tom Reed stepped forward to test the first beam, Marina steadied her breath. The future of Hartwell Industries, of her marriage, of Ethan's legacy, balanced on this fragile moment. When the hydraulic press descended and the beam held firm, not a crack, not a warp, a cheer went up from the bleachers. Journalists captured every angle. Marina saw Sebastian Hart's silhouette in the VIP box, arms folded, a hint of a nod acknowledging her success. The live, streamed demonstration concluded with independent engineers signing their certificates. In that roaring moment, months of turmoil gave way to cautious optimism. Ethan clasped Marina's hand, his eyes glinting with gratitude. Behind them, the steel columns stood straight and true, symbols of resilience. Hartwell Industries had been tested, battered, and nearly broken. But through crisis and confession, recall and redemption, it had survived. And in the wake of near ruin, a deeper confidence emerged, that true strength lied not only in steel, but in honesty, accountability, and the unyielding resolve to do what is right. Monday's press release called it Hartwell's turning point. For Marina, Ethan, and every worker in that plant, it marked the beginning of rebuilding trust, brick by steel beam, seam by seam, and set the stage for the battles yet to come. The successful live demonstration in Boise offered Hartwell Industries a much-needed reprieve. Press headlines hailed Ethan and Marina as the faces of the company's redemption, and share prices edged upward. Yet beneath the surface of renewed optimism, a darker current swirled, one orchestrated by a figure as driven by vengeance as Sebastian was by legacy. Damien Cole. Damien, Sebastian Hart's secret son from a youthful affair in San Diego, had watched his father's world crumble with keen satisfaction. Abandoned by Sebastian's promise of support years ago, Damien had clawed his way through low-wage labor and petty industrial gigs, all the while nursing a grudge that festered into obsession. He understood Hartwell's machinery intimately, from the clattering hammers of the steel mills to the boardroom politics that decided multi-million-dollar contracts. And once Marina Vale entered the picture, Damien saw an opportunity, a wedge to drive between father and legitimate sons, a catalyst to tear down the Hart legacy from within. Damien's plan began months earlier with a quiet lunch invitation to Ethan. An unmarked envelope bearing Hartwell's corporate crest landed on Ethan's desk one morning, containing a dinner reservation at the Shoreline Bistro, a tucked-away seafood restaurant overlooking the harbor, one of Ethan's favorite spots. The note was succinct. "I have information that you and your father need to reconcile. Meet me tonight." Curious, and haunted by the still, fresh tension of last week's board ultimatum, Ethan agreed. When he arrived at the restaurant, Damien rose from a dim booth in the corner, his collar casually unbuttoned, dark eyes alert. He extended a firm handshake. "Ethan Hart?" Damien asked, voice low and steady. "I'm glad you came. Ethan slid into the booth. "You're Damien Cole? Call me Damien." He studied Ethan's face. "I know you've been under unrelenting pressure. Production delays, quality control recalls, your father's anger." He leaned forward. "I can help you if you're willing to listen." Over the next hour, Damien painted a portrait of corporate intrigue, charts showing the financial toll of the recall, snippets of boardroom gossip, and a scathing analysis of Sebastian's leadership failures. He made clear that institutional allies existed, senior shareholders dissatisfied with Sebastian's slow pivot into new markets, middle managers chafing under the new quality over speed regime. "You're smarter than your father," Damien whispered across the Bisterwood table. "You see the world evolving beyond steel alone, technology, renewable energy, even facade innovations with steel composites. The board wants that vision. But your father? He's stuck in the 1980s. He'll crush anyone who dares to push forward." Ethan shook his head. "I'm not here to usurp him." Damien's eyes gleamed. "Not yet. But if you had partial autonomy, you could rebuild this company on your terms, with Marina's design expertise and cutting-edge processes. You'd skyrocket ahead of the competition. I can arrange board support to give you emergency voting power for a pilot technology fund. You'll rebalance the board, sideline Sebastian's obstruction, and win." Ethan folded his arms. "I don't want a coup. I just want to fix what's broken, honestly." Damien smirked. "Honesty cost you your position. Look what transparency got you. A full-scale recall. The world moves fast. If you want to keep Hartwell alive, you either take control or watch it die." In the weeks that followed, Ethan found himself at a crossroads. Late-night strategy sessions with Damien in dim hotel lobbies and candlelit rooms, where Damien laid out board voting forecasts and legal maneuvers that could fast-track Ethan's ascent. Damien supplied him with insider data, emails from board members voicing concerns about Sebastian's steadiness, documents leaked from the CFO's office indicating that several major shareholders were ready for leadership change. All the while, Ethan's relationship with Marina strove for normalcy. Weekend brunches in Seaview Glen, toy shopping for Oliver, quiet evenings at Glen Glow. But late-night phone calls, surreptitious meetings, and Damien's insistence that time was running out ate away at Ethan's conscience. Then came the pivotal moment. An emergency shareholders' meeting convened under false pretenses. Damien had pulled strings, shipped proxy ballots to key investors, arranged a last-minute poll that gave emergency vote power to a faction calling for executive modernization. On a crisp Tuesday, the boardroom teleconference crackled to life. Sebastian dialed in from his home study, flanked by Diane and Carlos. Ethan joined from his penthouse office. Unbeknownst to them, Damien controlled all three proxy blocks. As the motion, authorize Ethan Hart to reallocate 30% of corporate capital toward new technologies. With voting rights override in the event of deadlock, came up for vote, the tally rang up in Ethan's favor. The chairman, surprised, asked for confirmation. "Motion carries," declared Damien. Speaking through the chairman's line, Sebastian's face drained of color. Ethan sat frozen. Marina, watching from a second screen in her design studio, gasped at the abrupt shift. The message on her phone, "We did it," glowed with ominous promise. Sebastian exploded. "What have you done?" he thundered. "This is insubordination." Ethan's heart pounded. Yet the board's pixelated faces showed solemn agreement. His own name preceded Marion's in the corporate hierarchy for the first time. Ethan Hart, Executive Chairman Interim. Within hours, certified letters went out. Sebastian's role reduced to honorary chairman, with limited veto power only on major mergers. Ethan took the reins, backed by Damien's coalition. Press releases boasted bold leadership realignment, while Hartwell's stock tick surged on rumors of new innovation funds. But the veneer of success shattered quickly. True boardroom politics is a double-edged sword. Supporters demanded immediate projects: automated steel, casting drones, graphene-infused alloys, even forays into aerospace contracts. Ethan turned to Marina. "Can your team produce prototypes in weeks, not months?" Marina, furious at his Machiavellian ambition, refused. Ethan, this is exactly what led us to recall failures. Rushing new products without testing kills credibility and people. Ethan's desperation flared. He leaned on Damien, who backed him with legal cover and promised to silence dissenters. By week's end, layoffs hit 3 regional plants, dozens of senior managers deleted from org charts, and 2 union contracts renegotiated for cost savings. Profits ticked upward, but at what moral cost? Unrest mushroomed. Worker protests in Seattle. Anonymous blogs exposing manipulated board votes. Sebastian unleashed PR campaigns painting Ethan's coup as hostile takeover fueled by an interloper, carefully hinting at Marina's influence. Marina's designs were suddenly labeled unshakable uniforms in promotional copy, turning her role into an easy scapegoat when prototypes failed stress tests at 2 fast schedules. Ethan found himself defensive, torn. Damien's plan had succeeded, but the company was bleeding morale and integrity. Board support wavered as minority stakeholders cried foul. Where's our vote? This smells like fraud. The SEC sniffed around proxy voting irregularities, launching a preliminary inquiry. Suddenly, Ethan's moment of ascension resembled a house of cards. As tensions peaked, Marina insisted on answers. She tracked odd patterns in email metadata and security logs, puzzled by Ethan's overnight absences. One evening, she hacked the design studio's security feed and saw Ethan slip into the parking garage with Damien Cole, 2 silhouettes whispering conspiratorially under a flickering lamp. Confronting him in the dim corridor, Marina demanded the truth. Ethan wavered, then confessed. The secret dinners, the orchestrated proxy votes, the ruthless cost-cutting. Damien made it all possible, he admitted, shame in his eyes. I thought I was saving the company, saving us. But I lost my way. Marina's disbelief turned to fury. Damien is using you to destroy your father's life's work, and ours. If you keep letting him manipulate you, Hartwell will implode, and you'll lose Marina, lose Oliver, lose yourself. Ethan's heart shattered. I don't know how to stop him. He's everywhere, on the board, in the shadows. The next morning, Sebastian summoned both Ethan and Marina to his study. Behind his stoic calm, Sebastian's eyes glittered with vindication. He'd known Damien existed for years, but had kept it from everyone to prevent chaos.
Now.
Sebastian had Damien's birth certificate on his desk, along with notarized letters detailing Damien's vendetta. Sebastian placed the documents before Ethan. This is my son. I've tried to protect him, tried to keep him out of Hartwell. And he repaid me by betraying you, me, and every worker who trusted this name. He looked at Damien's framed adoption papers, damning evidence of paternity. You see why I exiled him from the company? He's been orchestrating every failure, every rumor, every proxy vote. He engineered this coup to break us. Ethan sank onto a leather couch.
I'm sorry, Dad.
I didn't know. Marina stood beside him. Now you know. We have to reverse it before SEC action. Before the board splits, before Hartwell collapses. Sebastian nodded. We will root him out. Together. He pressed a button on his desk intercom. Diane, secure all records related to proxy votes. Board minutes and communications with defendant Cole. You have 1 hour. That afternoon, Hartwell's legal team convened an emergency session. Damien received a text. Come to my office now. He arrived to find Sebastian flanked by Diane and 2 senior attorneys. The door clicked shut. Without preamble, Sebastian launched the damning evidence. Emails from Damien's private account. Detailed reports of his clandestine meetings with Ethan, scanned signatures forged to manipulate proxy votes. As each piece landed on the conference table, Damien's mask of confidence slipped. When Sebastian turned to him, calm fury in his voice, Damien realized the game was up. Sebastian offered 2 options: public confession and resignation in exchange for leniency, or a lawsuit for conspiracy, fraud, and corporate espionage. Damien's hands trembled over the table. He chose confession. In a live-streamed press conference that evening, Ethan and Sebastian stood side by side. Marina flanked them, hands gripping Oliver's stroller. Behind them, a single banner read, Hartwell's renewal, accountability, integrity, resilience. Sebastian addressed the cameras. Today we expose a dark chapter in our history, a betrayal orchestrated by one of my own sons, motivated by revenge. We will not shy away from accountability. Hartwell Industries recommits to transparency and to the people who build and wear our steel. Ethan added, I allowed myself to be manipulated by personal ambition. I apologize to every employee, every partner, and every family that depends on this company. I will work with the SEC and our clients to restore trust. Damien stood at Sebastian's side, his shoulders slumped. I am responsible for my actions. I apologize to my father, my half-brothers, and to the entire Hartwell family. I will cooperate fully with authorities. In the weeks that followed, Hartwell Industries embarked on an even deeper overhaul. Proxy vote regulations were rewritten, internal compliance teams enlarged tenfold, and Sebastian reinstated the traditional board structure with an independent audit committee. Ethan returned to his design role, focusing on product innovation under Marina's guidance. The two of them co-chaired a new quality and ethics council, ensuring no quarter was cut for speed at the expense of safety. Damien accepted a settlement that included community service teaching welding safety at technical colleges, a modest redemption. The SEC closed its inquiry with no fines. Impressed by Hartwell's swift, voluntary admissions, client relationships, once strained, began to heal as Hartwell fulfilled all recall obligations and delivered flawless steel for major infrastructure projects in Los Angeles and San Francisco. And so, from the ruins of betrayal and boardroom coups, Hartwell Industries emerged more resilient. Ethan and Marina, their bond tested by crisis, found new strength as partners. In life, in parenthood, and in business. Under the steadfast leadership of Sebastian Hart, mentored by his own hard lessons, the company's towering mills once again forged beams that would shape skylines for generations. But none of that would have been possible without confronting the poisoned legacy Damien Cole had sown, a reminder that true steel is tempered not just in flame, but in the crucible of accountability and unwavering integrity. In Harbor City's restless harbor breeze, on the deck of the Boise Mill's cooling yard, and in the quiet hum of Glen Glow long after closing hours, Hartwell's story became one not just of steel, but of redemption and of the enduring bonds that hold us together when the fiercest storms pass. Marina's world shifted on a single, unremarkable Tuesday morning. She and Ethan were convening in the newly stabilized Hartwell boardroom, reviewing prototype summaries for the next Glen Glow uniform line. The recall crisis was behind them. Hartwell's renewal campaign had begun to bear fruit. Smiles and handshakes had replaced recriminations. Yet beneath the polished veneer of corporate victory, Marina felt a growing unease. That unease turned to dread when Diane Marquez whispered in her office doorway, Ms. Vale, a family emergency. Sebastian needs you at home.
Now.
The drive back to Sebastian's Maple Grove estate was a blur of siren lights and harried phone calls. At the front door, Marina found Sebastian's shoulders slumped, eyes hollow. In his hand, he clutched a sheaf of papers. Hospital intake forms, insurance documents, the kind of bureaucratic debris that signals disaster. Vivian collapsed this morning, he told Marina in a hushed voice. A photo was found by her bed. She never made it to the car. Inside, the estate's grand foyer felt every inch the cruel irony of that morning's news, a place meant to celebrate success. Now a mausoleum of anxiety. Ethan arrived moments later, running his hand through his hair. Mom had a headache, he said, voice cracking. She said she'd be fine, then she went into convulsions. Within minutes, they were by Vivian Hart's side in the Harbor City General Hospital's intensive care unit. Tubes, monitors, and the low, steady hum of machinery surrounded her. Her once vibrant face lay pale beneath a tangle of medical gauze. Sebastian stood at her bedside, hand pressed to the crisp white sheets. Marina knelt on the adjacent stool, eyes brimming. Ethan hovered, twisting a tissue in his fists. Dr. Patrice Nguyen, the neurosurgeon who had saved countless lives, entered with measured steps. Mr. and Mrs. Hart, I'm so sorry. Vivian suffered a massive subarachnoid hemorrhage, an aneurysm rupture. We stabilized her and performed an emergency craniotomy, but the bleeding caused extensive brain injury. She's in critical condition. Marina rose, hand over her heart. She caught Sebastian's gaze. For once, they were united in raw grief. Will she pull through? She whispered.
Dr.
Nguyen shook her head gently. We're monitoring intracranial pressure, but the prognosis is guarded. It's best to prepare for any outcome. Hours passed in agony. Marina and Sebastian remained at the bedside, Ethan rotating between phone calls with the board and voicemails from worried executives. At one point, Vivian's hand twitched, an electric flicker of life that galvanized them all. Leon Vale, Marina's father, arrived with Carmen Vale, her mother, their faces etched with shock. They knelt beside Marina, clasps around her shoulders. She's a fighter, Carmen murmured. Hold on, Viv. But on the third night, around 2:15 a.m., the monitors flatlined. Dr. Nguyen returned with drawn features. I'm so sorry, she said. Her brain swelling was too severe. We did our best. Marina felt the air drain, her knees slipping from beneath her. Sebastian closed Vivian's eyes, whispering a final benediction. Ethan wept openly for the first time. Carmen and Leon encircled Marina in a mute embrace. In the hush of the ICU, a life of kindness and warmth, Vivian's life, slipped away. The days that followed were a whirlwind of funeral arrangements and corporate communications. Funeral services were held at Harborview Chapel, a modest ceremony reflecting Vivian's unpretentious grace. Pastoral voices spoke of her gentle spirit, the comfort of her peach preserves, and the way she eased every tension with a single, reassuring smile. Marina wore a simple black dress, clutching a white rose, the same rose Vivian had pinned at her wedding reception. Ethan stood a respectful distance behind her, suit dark, eyes rimmed red. Sebastian delivered the eulogy with a trembling voice. My wife was the soul of Hartwell. She reminded us that behind every beam and every ledger, humanity endures. Without her, our home is emptier, our resolve tested. Yet I take comfort in her faith in us. After the service, Marina slipped away to the estate's rose garden, petals slipping gently from heavy blooms. She sank to a stone bench and bowed her head. Oliver Hartwell, then only 3 months old, cooed softly from his car seat, tended by her mother Carmen. Marina ran a finger across his tiny palm, marveling at the fragility and promise of life. She bent forward, pressing her forehead against the metal handle of a stroller. Mom, please help me, she whispered, tears falling onto Oliver's soft cheeks. A week later, Marina sat in Ethan's penthouse office, the skyline's glimmering lights reflecting off its floor-to-ceiling windows. Papers lay strewn across the glass desk, divorce petitions, custody agreements, financial settlements. Ethan stood beside her, shoulders drawn, hands shoved deep into his pockets. What are you doing, Marina? He asked quietly. We can get through this together. Her gaze was unwavering. Ethan, I love you, and I will always be grateful for our son. But I cannot stay married to what Hartwell wound us in. Vivian believed family first. I've lost my mother. Now I need to be Oliver's mother. Fully, without corporate chaos pulling us apart. He reached for her hand. I'll resign. We'll move to Seaview Glen together. I'll leave the board, walk away from Hartwell. Marina shook her head. You have your place here. I need Oliver to have roots, not divided between two worlds. She slid the divorce papers toward him. I request sole custody. You can visit, you can pay child support. But I will give Oliver the stability he deserves. I will write my own story now. Silence draped the room until Ethan exhaled slowly, tears brimming. If this is what you truly want, I can't stop you. Within days, the divorce was filed. In the family court of Harbor City, the judge reviewed their settlement. Ethan would make full financial support payments and have visitation rights on alternating weekends. Marina would retain their penthouse only long enough to gather Oliver's things, then surrender it in favor of a cottage in Seaview Glen. She relinquished any claim on Hartwell stock or inheritance. The judge signed off. Divorce granted. Marina emerged from the courthouse holding Oliver. His bright eyes flashed at the sun as she lifted him to her chest. She hailed a cab to Seaview Glen, her heart an even mix of sorrow and relief. When they arrived at her parents' whitewashed cottage, Oscar and Carmen rushed out onto the porch, arms wide. Oliver shrieked in delight, clutching his grandmother's necklace. Marina allowed herself a shaky smile as she stepped into the embrace of her birth family. In the weeks that followed, Marina carved out a new life, converting a spare bedroom into Oliver's nursery, repainting walls in soft seafoam green, installing a swing beneath the apple tree in the front yard. She returned to her sewing machine each day, stitching children's clothing and spa robes for Glen Glow's boutique branch in Portland. Each seam she sewed felt like a quiet declaration she would rebuild, stitch by stitch. A future far removed from the Hart family's steel towers. On a bright spring morning, Marina pushed Oliver in his stroller down Main Street, past the bakery and the bookshop, past friendly neighbors who paused to greet them. He reached for a wind-blown dandelion and giggled as she blew the seeds into the breeze. The air smelled of salt and pine, not of molten steel and corporate tension. Marina looked down at Oliver's smiling face, heart brimming. She whispered, "Mom would have loved this." And for the first time since Vivian's passing, she felt a measure of peace. In Seaview Glen's gentle rhythms, she and Oliver found the calm after the storm, free to write their own chapter, guided by love, resilience, and the simple joy of a mother's embrace. The morning sun cast a gentle glow across Seaview Glen's Main Street as Marina Vale unlocked the front door of Glen Glow Spa and Wellness for the first time. The air smelled of sea salt and blooming jasmine from window boxes planted the week before. It was hard to believe that just a year earlier she had been trapped in the glass tower of Hartwell Industries, fighting boardroom battles and nursing grief.
Now,
standing before serene turquoise walls and softly flickering lanterns, she felt a surge of possibility. Inside, the spa's interior combined coastal chic with minimalist tranquility. Driftwood shelves lined with artisanal bath salts, foam green towels folded precisely on reclaimed oak benches, and a wall of glass jars labeled with herbs, lavender for calm, eucalyptus for clarity, peppermint for renewal. Marina had invested her savings and every ounce of creativity into this space. It would be the centerpiece of her new life. Her first client was due in 10 minutes, so she moved quietly, adjusting the thermostat, checking that the essential oil diffuser was misting at the right intensity. Glen Glow was more than a business. It was her sanctuary, a testament to her resilience. Every detail had a story. The hand-woven mats from her mother's Oregon workshop, the seaside art commissioned from a local painter, the soft organza robes custom, stitched by Marina herself. At 9 a.m., the bell above the door chimed. Marina stepped into the reception area and greeted her first guest, Eleanor Hastings, a long-time Seaview resident and one of the town's board members. "Good morning, Eleanor. Welcome to Glen Glow. Please have a seat. Can I offer you herbal tea or a jasmine steam shower first?" Eleanor's face lit with delight. "A steam shower would be lovely. You've created a haven here, Marina." As Eleanor glided to the treatment room, Marina opened the day's appointment book. The morning was fully booked: massages, facials, sound baths. Word of mouth had spread quickly. After the crisis at Hartwell, many locals had followed Marina's journey, her divorce, her solo motherhood, her unwavering determination, and now they wanted to support her new venture. By midday, the spa buzzed with soft laughter, soothing music, and the scent of sea minerals. Marina floated between rooms, offering warm towels and gentle smiles. She took pride in knowing each treatment was perfect: precise facial cleanses, soothing foot soaks by lantern light, scalp massages that melted tension away. When Oliver's gummy teeth peeked from the stroller at the reception desk, Marina paused to give him a quick hug, then handed him a tiny rubber ducky to keep him entertained. After closing for lunch, Marina stepped outside to catch her breath. She wandered down the street, passing the Harbor Bean coffee shop and the Indigo bookstore. On a whim, she ducked into the latter, letting the cool hush of shelves full of novels envelop her. A worn copy of Mary Oliver's poetry caught her eye, lines about resilience and the sea. She tucked it under her arm, heart swelling with gratitude for small mercies. At 2 p.m., as Marina unlocked the spa again, she heard a familiar yet unexpected voice. "Excuse me, Glenn Glow?" She turned to see a tall man with sandy hair, rolled, sleeved chambray shirt, and a smile that warmed rather than startled. He held a battered sketchbook under his arm. "Can I help you?" Marina asked, curious. "I'm Jackson Reed," he said, extending a smudged hand. "I paint the Harbor City waterfront, captured it in hundreds of canvases. I've seen this storefront over the fence for weeks and finally decided to introduce myself. I'd love to do a painting commission for your spa. I think it belongs on your wall." Marina blinked, momentarily speechless. Most artists bowed to her spa's beauty. Few offered to contribute. A painting for Glenn Glow. She found her voice. "That would be wonderful, thank you." They settled on a time to meet over tea that afternoon. Jackson's soft, spoken manner and genuine enthusiasm left Marina buoyed. As he sketched on a stool in the reception area, he chatted about his process, how the shifting tides of Harbor City inspired him, and how he believed art could transform a space's energy. Over the coming weeks, Jackson's presence became a delightfully steady feature at Glenn Glow. He worked on a sweeping waterfront mural behind the reception desk, capturing sunrise's pastel glow over gently rippling water. Marina admired the way his brushstrokes seemed to breathe life into the room. By day's end, she often found excuses to linger, offering him herbal tea or small pastries from the bakery down the street, in hopes of stealing a few more moments of conversation. Ethan's visits tapered off after the divorce, but on rare occasions he would drop by with a warm greeting for Oliver, who threw his arms around Ethan's neck in gleeful recognition. Marina maintained civility, but the encounters were brief and tinged with awkwardness. She was no longer Mrs. Hart. The scars of their past lingered in her heart, but did not define her future. Meanwhile, Jackson's painting progressed. One late afternoon, he invited Marina to watch him apply finishing touches. She stood behind him, marveling as he layered glints of gold into the horizon line. "This is going to be beautiful," she whispered. He glanced over his shoulder, eyes reflecting both paint and sincerity. For a space as soothing as this, it needed more than sea and sky. It needed warmth. He stuck his thumb into a dab of yellow ochre and wiped it on the corner of her lip.
Marina blinked,
Then laughed softly at the playful smear. Jackson's laughter joined hers, echoing in the spa's stone, tiled hallway, a sound of lightness she hadn't realized she'd missed. Social media buzzed. Hashtags like #GlennGlowArt and #HarborCityHealing trended locally. The mural's unveiling drew a small crowd, neighbors, local reporters, smiling clients. Over the mural's expanse, Jackson's brush had woven in delicate silhouettes of dunes, sailboats, and almost hidden, two tiny figures side by side on the shore. Marina found her own profile tucked discreetly into the corner, hand extended toward a small child clutching a rubber ducky. When she asked Jackson about it, he said simply, "That's our story, finding joy in new beginnings." As weeks turned into months, Glenn Glow became Marina's refuge and her legacy. The spa's membership grew. Local magazines featured her as Seaview Glen's Renaissance Woman, and charitable organizations sought her out to host wellness events for single parents and grief support groups. Marina donated spa packages for fundraisers, always mindful of her own journey from loss to renewal. Each tub of bath salts, each soothing massage, was a ripple in the healing waters she'd created. In the midst of her flourishing business, Jackson remained a constant presence. They shared early Saturday mornings, he painting seaside panoramas while she jogged the shoreline with Oliver in his jogging stroller. The boy shrieked with delight at each splash of wave foam, and Marina and Jackson traded stories about parenthood over cups of steamy cocoa at the Harbor Bean kiosk. Gradually, friendship deepened into the tender threads of romance. Quiet dinners at waterfront cafes, stolen kisses behind sand dunes, long walks beneath the harbor lighthouse at dusk. One crisp autumn evening, Jackson invited Marina to the very spot depicted in the mural center. They stood on a wooden jetty, the sea lapping quietly beneath their feet, Oliver asleep in Marina's arms. Lanterns strung overhead cast a gentle glow. Jackson took her hand and led her toward a small gathering of friends and neighbors who had come to celebrate Glen Glow's first anniversary. A throng of lit paper lanterns bobbed overhead. As Marina approached the mural inside the repurposed boathouse, she realized each lantern carried wishes, written on slips of paper tucked inside. Jackson squeezed her hand. "Tonight we launched Glen Glow's next chapter," he said. "But I have one more wish I need to share." He knelt, producing a small velvet box. Oliver stirred in Marina's arms as Jackson opened it, revealing a simple silver band set with a single, luminous opal. Marina gasped as Jackson clasped the ring around her finger. "Marina Vale," he said, voice wavering with emotion. "You took shards of tragedy and built something beautiful. You taught me what it means to be whole again. Will you marry me and be partners in life, love, and luminous new beginnings?" Tears sprang to Marina's eyes as she pressed her lips to Jackson's. Around them, the crowd erupted in cheers. Paper lanterns tilted skyward, and one by one drifted upward into the night air, carrying messages of hope and healing. Oliver stirred and giggled, reaching for the lantern's soft light. When Marina answered yes, her heart felt the same rush she'd once felt standing with Ethan in that silent sanctuary church, but now grounded in authenticity, free from secrets and corporate shadows. Jackson lifted her into his arms, and she whispered against his shoulder, "Yes, 1,000 times yes." As the lanterns glimmered upward against the navy canvas of night, Marina realized that her life had come full circle, from heart family daughter, in law struggling to belong, to widowed mother rebuilding one frame of peace at a time, to a woman claiming her own destiny in partnership with a man who saw and celebrated her every facet. Glen Glow shimmered in the lantern light behind them, a beacon of resilience and renewal. And as the final lantern drifted into starlight, Marina Vale, forged in sorrow, refined by grief, and gilded by new love, felt her heart settle into harbor at last. The tide had turned, and this time she would never be swept away. And that brings us to the end of today's story on TrueStory Vibes. Don't forget to leave a comment with a quote or moment that touched you the most. Your words give our team the motivation to keep creating more heartfelt stories. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you again soon.